Welcome to episode 17. We are now. We have Melissa. My name is Thomas, and we have Maggie with us again. Today, actually, we will talk about healthcare, and I'm sure you have some interesting stuff that you found. Melissa, why don't you get started?
Sure. So I was curious because a lot of our newer projects are in the B2B marketing space. So I was doing a lot of research for that. And I actually found some pretty interesting stats about B2B marketing specific to healthcare. Um, Overall, the B2B digital advertising space is up 22.6% compared to 2019, bringing it to a total of $8.14 billion ad spend in 2020.
Wow.
Within that, the healthcare space takes up about 10.4% of the ad spend in 2020, which is, in retrospect, I guess 10.4% isn't really all that high. I was expecting it to be a little bit higher, but compared to 2019, the total percentage is up 41.2%. So it's a growing market in the digital ad space for B2B marketing.
So wait,
Um,
before we move on. So just to make sure I understand this. So healthcare grew over last year.
yes.
Year over
Yep.
year. Wow, that's very interesting because we've seen a lot of clients during COVID, scale back.
Yeah, they said that the top industries within healthcare are obviously pharma, because that's where a lot of the big money is, a lot of the biotech companies, and a lot of hospital service companies. So I guess, programs or softwares or whatever kind of company it is that assists hospitals. Those are the three big buyers so far.
Yeah.
In
I'm sure the all the technology companies, yeah, the telemedicine, telehealth companies, I'm sure they advertised heavily.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the other interesting fact I learned was overall, not just within healthcare, but with B2B marketing, laptop usage is up 5.3% compared to 2019. So overall, people are spending more time on laptops, and people and these companies are also putting their money more into laptop ad spending than mobile ad spending. Um, Not by a whole lot. Desktop is about $4.92 billion and mobile is $3.22 billion. So they're pretty close, but I was actually really surprised to see that people are spending more in desktop than mobile.
Yeah,
It's
but
because people are at home more now, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to say I think the laptop increase is probably due to the fact that everybody's working from home.
Right.
I know actually of quite a few people that used to have a desktop at work and had to work from home. And it was a real issue at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I bet laptop sales, I don't know, but I bet laptop sales are high this year too because of that. A lot of companies probably had to re-equip their employees with computers where they had desktops before. Now they have laptops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So overall, healthcare marketing is just, and this is only, up until August of 2020. I'm sure going into the end of the year and the following year, it'll be interesting to see how this keeps trending. But healthcare marketing is pretty much the only industry within B2B marketing that is continuously growing right now. Travel is obviously down.
Right.
So healthcare and tech are like the big two to keep an eye on.
Maggie, on the since we're doing a lot of medical marketing as well, have you seen a switch in device usage or performance changes with the devices in the ad spend or the on the ads?
I haven't seen, from what I've seen from our clients, I haven't seen that much of a difference. I still see mobiles pretty heavy, but I do think it's probably because our clients are a little bit, it's more because they're more doctor practices. It might be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but on that side, it's like far over 50%, right? That goes mobile.
Yes. Yeah. It's really, you have to think mobile first now.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking mobile first, you're going to lose a lot of people.
Right. And then I still see a lot of websites, especially on the medical side, that are not responsive at all, meaning not optimized for mobile devices. And then that always mind boggles me. That still there are still a lot of websites like that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Very good. Interesting. Maggie, why don't you get going too?
Yeah, so my topic kind of piggybacks off this a little bit. So mine was about, will telemedicine continue after the pandemic? So as everybody knows, doctor practices like frantically implemented telemedicine at the start of quarantine. And telemedicine was already kind of a movement before, but because of the pandemic, it has now been more widely used. And doctor offices were kind of forced to move a lot of their businesses online if they wanted to be able to continue to see patients and also make money. And an interesting stat that I found in this article was that Cleveland Clinic, which is a larger clinic, went from averaging 5,000 telemedicine appointments before the pandemic to 200,000 telemedicine appointments just in April.
Wow.
So there was a big difference. And now doctors and healthcare researchers are actually envisioning telemedicine evolving after COVID fades, and they see it replacing many in-person visits and becoming a greater part of the routine care. And it's also, people can have more contact with doctors but fewer trips to the office, so it saves a lot of time, and people value time. People don't want to spend 45 minutes traveling to the top doctor when they can just have an appointment online. That's the top doctor in the area. So another stat that I found interesting was virtual care could end up replacing up to 40% of in-person doctor visits that don't involve
20%.
hospital stays.
Wow.
Yeah. But then again, researchers also don't expect telemedicine to replace all in-person care, because there's millions of people don't have access to technology. Some people are still going to be reluctant to use it, and not all ailments can be treated remotely.
Right,
So,
but 40% is still a huge number, especially considering
yeah.
the huge volume of transactions in healthcare. It's just mind-boggling.
Right. So they kind of see the telemedicine being used more for like check-ins, second opinions, talking to a doctor after procedure. And some doctors see it playing a larger role in people with chronic conditions. And the telemedicine also has secure messaging for quick questions and remote monitoring for the chronic health problems like diabetes. So it'll make it easier for that. And then although there are a lot of benefits to telemedicine, there are also a few things that need to be worked out, like insurance coverage, doctor reimbursement, and then people just continuing to use it, if that's going to happen after COVID. And during COVID, they said that a lot of insurers actually waived fees to encourage people to use it. And the federal government actually relaxed restrictions on telehealth use in Medicare. And ultimately, insurers do want people to start using telemedicine because it keeps people out of expensive hospital visits, which they don't want to pay for. So they would rather pay for telemedicine than people visiting, having an ambulance bill or visiting. Well, I mean, if you need an ambulance, you have to go. But
definitely, I think it will stay.
Yes.
And it accelerated so much. We talked with a big nephrology practice in the city this week, and the head doctor, he's actually more on the older side already, in his early 80s, and he said using his words, at telehealth and telemedicine accelerated by 10 years over the last 3 months, which is really quite a statement. And he said it's here to stay.
Yes.
So that's very interesting. It's also what we're seeing. Certainly, the reimbursement is an issue that has to be further expanded. Also, more codes probably have to be added, and the rules have to change. but it's actually, it ties very nicely into also what I wanted to talk about, which is how you differentiate as a practice in the future with all the things going on. And I want to piggyback a little bit on what you talked about telemedicine and telehealth. A lot of people use this the same way, but it's not quite correct. Telemedicine is more focused on the true medical treatment of patients, and it's a subset of telehealth. When telehealth, there's also all the technology related to telemedicine and overall health, or wellness coaching. Wellness coaching actually is on the medicine side, telemedicine, and on the telehealth side. But if you look at the numbers, and those numbers are from pre-COVID, expected growth for telehealth, $266 billion by 2026, huge number. And for telemedicine, 130 billion by 2025. Again, those numbers, those predictions were from pre-COVID. There's at the moment, there's still no good new studies on growth projections. But needless to say, the numbers, the growth is gigantic. Mm-hmm. And then if you combine the technology side with other issues, for example, we have about 34 million people of diabetic patients. We have 88 million pre-diabetic, 28 million cardiovascular patients, 116 million hypertension population. It's huge. It's just gigantic. Those are just gigantic numbers. Or obesity is 28 million people. And a lot of those illnesses, they are, caused by lifestyle changes, choices. So because of that and all the things you talked about with telemedicine, what we will see explode is remote patient monitoring. Those numbers will skyrocket because the technology is here now. The insurance, the doctors, everybody wants to drive more of the telehealth and telemedicine, but also the patients want to be treated at home, want to have more service at home. So that's one trend. Then the other trend related to all of that, we will see a huge increase of data that have not existed before. And for example, all the remote patient monitoring devices, heart rate monitors, blood pressure, scales, any of those devices are out there. They create a huge amount of data that in the future can be mined. And so we will see a lot of that happening in the future. And because of that huge amount of data will actually newly enter our market, we will see the use of artificial intelligence applied to that data, because you need artificial intelligence to really make sense out of so many data. And then the other integration that, or the other piece or trend that we will see related to all of that is with the increase of data and people not going into doctor practices physically, we will see an increase of needs and willingness to share data among healthcare providers and systems. Yeah. And that will drive more integrated healthcare services. As an example, wellness is one of the fastest growing segments in healthcare. Mm-hmm. And the integration of wellness into primary care practices, or in not just primary care, in medical practices as an integral part of services, will be something that we will see going forward. Because it makes medical sense. It actually proactively or prevents illnesses. It helps with all the statistics I show, with all the huge amount of people, number of people are being sick. And the bottom line of all of that is that services will become more important. And what I mean with that is, going back to the initial question I basically posed or I raised, is how do you differentiate in the future? Mm-hmm. I think as a medical practice today, or you should not just look at telehealth and telemedicine as something that was pushed because of COVID, and it might stay or might not. I think you really have to actually understand, the trends with telemedicine, the patient behavior expectations and patient expectations, increase of data, remote patient monitoring, more integrated services. That means if you as a practice don't embrace this today and realize this is the new healthcare of the future, then you will probably have a hard time to compete and to differentiate. I think the practices that don't question any of those things, but rather embrace it, those are the ones that really succeed going forward. And I think technology and also younger generations will actually drive all of that.
I agree.
Yeah. You made a really good point about just driving the integrated healthcare, into everything that we do going forward, especially as people get, as the younger people are getting on their own insurance and looking to, take control of their own healthcare.
Yeah, and then if you look at the devices, the multitude of devices you can have now for remote patient monitoring, you can have glucose monitors, you can have so many different things now readily available, not too expensive, and the integration is so easy now. Now you can have basically anything that connects to your Wi-Fi, to your phone, or to your watch, to Apple or to the Android applications can be integrated. But then there's also a whole host of 4G devices. They don't even need Wi-Fi. They just transmit the data. So I think we will see this, entrench all practices.
Yep, I agree.
And actually related to that is also, I think what practice will see, they will see an increase of competition that is not local. If you're right, Maggie, with the statistic of 40% can be or will be on telemedicine, think about that means 40% of the visits could be covered by a doctor that is anywhere in the United States. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you will have, you're competing nationally for your local patients. And I think, back to what I said with the services, I think we will see more players popping up in the future that are focused on providing a world-class patient experience focused solely on treatment that can be delivered remotely. And they will say, we don't do anything that is, where you need face-to-face or physical interaction. And I think that trend itself will create a lot of pressure for local practices, especially if they don't jump on that. Because quite frankly, any local practice now with all of that can become a national player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point.
So, okay, that was good. Very interesting. Healthcare is certainly a great place to be at the moment, but it's also very challenging, certainly for businesses. So, hope it was interesting for listeners and watchers, and hope to see you again next week.